I am a white man who is a veteran, and I took the time to make the sign, so you know how bad things really are. And you know, that sign gave me a lot of hope.
Thank you. So our next question is, what strategy do you have for engaging with or deterring people who are in or moving into white nationalist or fascist attitudes or behaviors?
I feel like this one might have been partly meant for me, and I have to say this is not something that I actually do a lot. I publicly counter-organize against white nationalists, and what that means is they are strategic and smart enough to not share these kinds of views with me. Western State Center does have a guide for parents and caregivers who are concerned that their kids might be getting into some of this kind of stuff. It's on our website. I think there are a lot of ideas in there about how to engage that also apply to people of any age. But this can be a really difficult thing to identify early in the process of someone getting sucked into a bigoted worldview. That's also because a lot of recruitment tactics that bring people into these ugly ideas rely on very slowly introducing potential recruits to their ideas until that person is bought in enough to believe the ugliness that's at the very core of it, that a lot of people might just knee-jerk reject from the start. But at a community level, communities do need to build resilience to these recruitment tactics, not just at a structure. And what the people of Coos Bay did was not go and try and change this man's mind, right? They instead went to the people who worked at the port, they went to the Port Commission, and wrote an open letter that Western State Center supported the development of. They talked about why this was happening, and they talked about how to stop it. And what they did was prevent him from buying that business, because his entire plan, as was shown in leaked chats, was to use that business as a power base to hire other people out of the movement.
Exciting and interesting and fascinating. So I think the information itself will draw enough people, but especially if they're sanitizing our libraries, they're make sure that we have a place kids can go to get the books that they're taking out of the schools, that they're taking out of the universities, and make sure that we're building that resource in our own communities, and direct kids who have questions to those resources.
You know, I just want to add that what I loved about the question was that it wasn't just about white nationalists. It was about fascist attitudes and behaviors. And I want to be very clear, this is not something about white Americans and non-white Americans.
And so this, it kind of ties into question 6. Let me see here, let me make sure that's it. Let me double check. Yes, okay, so I'm going to read this part of question 6, and then this one is geared towards our senators that I think could be helpful in terms of policy, and I would encourage from the other panelists. There are so many laws and statutes that would allow law enforcement agencies at all levels to enforce accountabilities on these domestic terrorists and white supremacist groups, yet they are rarely, if ever, used. Is it getting better laws issued? And then I'm gonna pull into, California has a Senate Bill 627, the No Secret Police Act, seeks to prohibit all local, state, and federal officers from using masks with some exceptions. Senate Bill 805, the No Vigilantes Act, would require that officers clearly display their name or badge numbers. So would our senators support or introduce similar policy to what California is doing?
A senator who's not here was on it the minute that came out. So there will definitely be a bill on this for next session that takes a look at making sure that law enforcement is identifiable. I would like to take that one step further, and Leslie's hearing this for the first time. I meant to reach out to you last week, sorry. I would love to see us do a private right of action against those individuals that cannot be identified as law enforcement. So I have staff working on it, but I'll share it publicly once I have it. Well, I guess we're being recorded, so there we go. So I think there are definitely ways we can do, and I'm just so proud of the work that we have done in Washington. We have a program where you have to be certified to be a law enforcement officer. And because of so many people in this room, we now have a process that you get decertified. And that is critical. We have passed laws that say that when you change agencies or you are hired, you will be doing, when I work on a bill, I continue working on it until I see the implementation as the manner in which it was intended. And I know there are a lot of people here who do the same thing. So, when I ran and won, that was during Trump 1.0. And at that time, our state really did a lot of work in ensuring how we can Trump-proof our state. I did not think we would be here again. Transparency. I am really glad that Mike talked about fusion centers, because it's law enforcement prosecutors and judges who know about fusion centers, no one else. Since I came into the Senate, I made sure I had a meeting with the director of the fusion center every couple of years, because I want them to know that I know. I haven't met with the new director of the Fusion Center. It's been on my list to do. But we have to, each and every one of us has to make sure that we are talking about things that people don't want us to talk about. That's how you bring that transparency. And, I'm really glad that Juan started this event by saying we're not anti-law enforcement, because none of us are. I've been a prosecutor for 20 years. I do work around gender-based violence, gun violence, sexual assault. We need law enforcement to step up and truly help survivors. And we build that trust with the community, and we empower law enforcement when they are able to stand up to what is wrong within their own ranks. There's so many good officers who want their houses cleaned. And I think this is where we build that relationship between community, law enforcement, and the legislature to make sure we are saying, yes, we will help you clean your house. Because we can get to a point in time where that trust can be built. But in order to do that, you have to know your history. You have to know the culture that started your agency. And then you have to be deliberate in making sure you are changing that culture. And so I was really proud of Sue Rahr when she became director of the Criminal Justice Training Commission, because I trained law enforcement on crisis intervention training for 10 years. But that culture change comes from saying we want guardians in our community, not warriors in our street.
So it's easy to follow Senator Dhingra, because she said everything that I wish I would have said. But she talked about culture, she talked about culture, she talked about culture, and that is what we are doing in this state now. I am so very, very proud and pleased to live in the state of Washington, because we have accountability. I speak with the director of the Criminal Justice Training Commission. She's on speed dial with me. It's Manka Alexander. She and I speak every single day. We talk about things that they are doing. She talks about legislation that we should have. But one of the things that I wanted to talk about real quick is, I attended, and I see Wally Webster here, and he and I are both from the South, but I attended a little tiny church in Louisiana when I was growing up. And at the end of every service, I don't know why he did it, because I was a small boy, and I heard it from the time that I was a small boy until I finally left and joined the military, but he would end every service by saying, nobody can do everything, but everybody can do something. Nobody can do everything, but everybody can do something. Having this group today talking about what we're doing, everybody is doing something. And Senator Dhingra will tell you that we go back to our caucus. We can't talk about what we talk about, but we go back to our caucus, and these are the discussions we have in our caucus. And this is how we get not just good legislation, but great legislation. This is how we get members of the House and the Senate and the governor to pass it, by going out into the communities and talking about things that they're doing. So we're not doing everything, but we're going to do something. And I think we're doing something by getting the work done. And I will just say this. I have been accused. Now just know this. I spent almost 4 decades, and 4 decades to me is like 40 years. I spent almost 4 decades in law enforcement. My son is somewhat of a bigwig down in LAPD. I have cousins and nephews. But even I get accused of not supporting law enforcement. And what I say to them is this: I support law enforcement 110%. It's the ones that should not be there that I don't support. And they are the ones that we need to get removed from the profession. And I will say this, with the policies that we're putting in place, that is what we are doing in the state of Washington. And I'm really, really pleased and proud that you're seeing this. You're seeing a tremendous culture change in the state of Washington.
If I can add one quick thing. And, you know, this goes back to the role all of you have, right? I have been watching very, very carefully what's been going on with Seattle Police Department and releasing the name of the 6 law enforcement officers that were there on January 6th. And I was very pleased that this week the judges ruled that those names have to be released. And this is what happens when we work together, is we can do that accountability and transparency. But without the community, none of this work is possible. And so again, thank you so much.
And I just want to say one last thing about the Seattle Police Department. I'm sorry, I get fired up on some things. I was headed to Spokane, to her city, Monday, and I called the police chief from Seattle, called his staff, and I said, I'd love to stop in and see you. And I'm telling you guys, believe me when I say this, there's a real leader there. Chief Barnes is really doing a great job. He had a map up. I don't know if he put that map up because he thought I was coming in, but he had all of the precincts lined up, and I knew those precincts, and he's talking about the good work that they are doing. And you know, I remember I walked around in the city, and I felt pretty good stepping off light rail and walking up to his office, but it's happening. But we need to do the things that we're doing here, and we're going to keep going with this, but we're getting some great leadership. Have you met him?
And I don't know Washington state law very well, but one of the really important things to keep in mind is that the police officers know who the bad officers are in every department.
Yes.
The unfortunate thing in many places in the country is that it makes sure that officers who report abusive police officers are protected and have a way to enforce their rights. If it doesn't exist, it should.
Thank you. That was my bill from a few years ago. You need to report.
Maybe one last thing, because this question did ask about whether we need better laws on some of these things. Stricter and stricter laws. Throughout the Biden era, there were some really concerning discussions about new federal level domestic terrorism statutes. And, you know, I believe you said, Senator Dhingra, we have to know our history. These kinds of laws are something that are a real threat to our civil liberties. Any new domestic terror statute really has the potential to come back so much harder on Black and brown people, on immigrants, on people organizing for justice, on the LGBTQ plus community, than it ever would on those who we might hope would have their organizing disrupted by it. So I did want to say that's something that Western State Center consistently opposes. Always pay a lot of attention when you hear people acting like a new domestic terror statute is going to solve our problems, because it will not.
I know we're wrapping up to the last question, and I kind of wanted to tailor this for you, Kate. I know I really appreciate everybody's time. So we often see the rise in organized bigoted groups characterizing as problems for law enforcement to handle, but that's not how experts see it. So Kate, can you talk about how organizations like Western State Centers approach white nationalism as a whole society problem, and what roles do community organizations play in making a difference?
Yeah, it's a real honor to be on this panel as the sole community organizer, at least currently. I don't hold office. I was never an undercover agent. I just call a lot of people on the phone all the time. That's what I do. But yeah, that is right. Experts around the world do know that organized bigotry is a whole society problem. And what that means is that each of us has our own role to play in pushing back on white nationalist organizing, no matter what our social position is. Yes, no one can do everything, but everyone can do something, and that includes each one of us. A very quick example, Western States Center over the years has received so many inquiries from bars, concert venues, art galleries, small nonprofit theaters about how they can do inclusive programming in pretty tough territory, and how can they do that safely. We also often do a lot of rapid response in response to harassment that these venues are receiving when they announce that they're hosting a Pride event, when they announce that they're hosting a Juneteenth art show at their gallery, right? This is where the attacks on DEI, as Mike mentioned, began, was these harassment campaigns. So because of this, we worked with a cohort of independent venue owners in Idaho to develop and release a guide for cultural venues and third spaces this spring. I am a former bartender, so I wasn't too surprised to see how positive the response has been to this guide. The music and hospitality industries have been really glad to see that. Dealing with hate in nightlife was part of how I got into this type of work, so it's something that is really part of my heart and part of my history. But a lot of people do say, I'm done without regular people who make the decision to stand up and say that something isn't okay in their town.
I wanted to give one last round of applause for our panelists. I appreciate all of you coming out, traveling, and taking your time to share and educate and build community with us today. I'm going to pass it off to Juan for our closing, and so thank you.
Thank you for having us.
First of all, let's give our panel and speakers a big round of applause for an excellent job today. I also want to acknowledge the protests that have been organized in Snohomish County by Indivisible, because they are very important to have the protests going on. And the thing about this is also that all social justice organizations in Snohomish County need to come together, because there's a lot of work to do, and none of us can do it alone. There's numbers in power, we all know that, so let's unite all of us together to do more work that's going to impede what's going on today. The dismantling of our government institutions, the violations of our Constitution, and the fact that this all dismantling is all to get money for the oligarchs, okay, who already have so much money, I don't know what the hell they're going to do with it all. But anyway, I think that Unidos is interested in continuing our work, and I will say and make this announcement today that Unidos just got funded for another 3 years from the Inatai Foundation. I think there's also a need more than ever to revive the Jesse Jackson Rainbow Coalition, because, you know, if we don't all come together, then we're all working in silos. And in a lot of ways, we're trying to work on the same issue, but there's sometimes different approaches to that issue. So if we can come together and unify an approach that's going to be effective and that's going to make changes through the policymakers that we have here at the panel, and you know, I think that, you know, we just need to work together, really, and because white supremacy has been rampant since the beginning of this country, and we all know that, and this has to come to an end, period, okay? So si se puede, we can be done, okay?
Wonderful to see this event here. Is the second event that we have in this new building that is aimed to engage community. I just want to invite you, Latino Education and Training Institute will be having the 20th Latino Expo at Edmonds College next Saturday. Unfortunately, in social media, we've been targeted. They're saying that they will be paying $450 per each immigrant. So we're going public to our community saying, if you feel unsafe, please stay home. We're going to broadcast the event. But we really want to invite allies to come to the Edmonds College. There is some flyers there, and there is an RSP. And let me tell you, we met with the mayor of Linwood, the police department. The lawyer told me, as a lawyer, I will tell you, cancel your event. We're not going to cancel. We're going to resist. And, but I really will appreciate the support of any of you, and we'll see as a community what they want to do if they see very little brown faces there. So please sign up. We're putting signs as a private event just because of a ticket. In case they showed up, at least we'll slow down them to get to the crowds. I think if it's true what is going in the social media, it will be probably the first event in Snohomish County that get targeted this way. We don't know. Thank you so much for your time.
And for those of you that don't know, I just want to let you know that this is my beautiful, very persistent, and she just works all day, every day. And the reason we have this building now is because of her dedication to going after that money to buy this building. So I want to be thankful to community people and legislators that helped her get that money, because she made presentations in Olympia 15 minutes to all the key legislators, but she ended up with the money she needed to buy the building.
Since we're thanking people, might as well thank to the people who really, really helped me change my thinking. And that's former Senator Marilyn Chase, who told me, if you're not going to do what I'm advising to do, then don't bother me. She may have said it a little bit different, but that pushed me. I said, I swear I will repeat it 1,000 times and until I can do it. Thank you, Marilyn. And Paul Benz is another person who really deserves the credit to put up with me until I learn